الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Continuing on Ṣaḥīḥ Bukhārī, inshallah. We are on chapter 22, where the chapter is Babu ma yukrahu min qeel wa qal. The chapter of what is disliked from the concept of qeel and qal. Qeel and qal in Arabic is what you and I say, he said, she said. So when we have those things about carrying rumors and taking someone's story, sharing it, you know, I heard such and such thing, did you hear this about such and such person? This is called qeel wa qal. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam one time was sitting and he was talking about the major sins. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam gets up and he stops and he says, Ala wa shahadatu zur, ala wa shahadatu zur, ala wa shahadatu zur. Bearing false testimonies about people, this is one of the major sins. And sometimes, a lot of times in high school and college and in the community, people make these comments about this girl or that guy you heard. And there's certain words that you use that give the meaning of a man or a woman who has illicit relationships or who has improper relationships, specifically someone who is not mindful. Just saying this word makes you a major sinner. And you all know, I'm not going to repeat what those words are. You all know what those words are. When people will make those statements and say those things, automatically, few things happen. Number one, out of the 7 major sins or the 10 major sins, one of them is qadf al-muhsanat, to accuse chaste women of adultery. Now, though it is chaste women, it refers to men as well, both ways. But the crime is so heavy that a person who does qadf al-muhsanat, who makes a comment in the negative way to a woman or a man, and it is not true, and they're not able to bring witnesses, then that person's testimony for the remainder of their life is revoked. And the Hanafis and the Shafis disagree whether that person can be a witness for someone's nikah or not. Whether they can bear witness for the moon of Ramadan or the moon of Eid. Hanafis say that they can be witnesses, they can't bear witness. There's 2 things. You can witness something, you just can't testify. The Shafi'is, they say, neither can you be a witness, neither can you testify. So if you are this person and you happen to be in someone's nikah, their nikah can be incomplete if you are the only 2 witnesses. Which is mind-blowing. That's how particular Sharia is when it comes to allegations of someone else. That you have to be you have to know. And you have to be very, if it's not an eyewitness thing, keep your mouth shut. Don't comment on it. Because people's reputations are on the line. And reputation is something that once it is shattered, very rarely does it come back again. Very rarely does it come back again. That's why qeel wa qal, he said, she said, is something that is so abhorrent to Allah's Messenger and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you don't have the knowledge of it, you know, I heard about this. You know, it happens in parties all the time. Aapne suna? You heard about this? Oh, you know, I don't know how true it is. If you don't know how true it is, don't mention it. Someone said something very beautiful. When someone came to them and said that, you know, I heard, they said, wait, hold on. Number 1, did you verify it? Number 2, is it beneficial or is it harmful? Number 3, by you saying this thing without verifying it, will it hurt someone else? And that also shows that if somebody comes and makes a comment to you about someone, it is your prerogative and responsibility to verify the other side or remain quiet about it. So even if it's your closest friends, there is no such thing in Sharia as blind loyalty, where someone tells you a comment and you don't need to verify from someone else. Ibn Hajar Asqalani, rahmatullah alayhi. Anyone heard of his name before? He's one of the greatest scholars of hadith. He wrote a commentary of Ṣaḥīḥ al-Bukhārī. Literally, his name means son of a rock. Ibn Hajar. Hajar, like Hajar al-Aswad, rock. Ibn, son. Mufti Sayyid Ahmad Palanpuri, rahmatullah alayhi, was one of the greatest scholars, passed away a few years ago. He said, I asked my teacher, Mufti Mahdi Hassan, that when I'm looking at references in my book, my teacher told me that I have to verify every reference. So even if you see it in a book, you still need to verify it. So he said, وَلَوْ قَالَ Ibn Hajar. He said, even if Ibn Hajar said it. So he responded and said, وَلَوْ قَالَ Ibn Jabal. Jabal in Arabic means a mountain. Hajar is a small rock, mountain is a big one. So he did a play on words to say that it doesn't matter who said or what happens, but you must verify. And that is why academics, they don't just quote, but they find the source of the reference and then they quote. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبقال حدثنا علي بن مسلم حدثنا هشيم أخبرنا غير واحد منهم مغيرة وفلان ورجل ثالث أيضا عن الشعبي عن وارد كاتب المغيرة بن شعبة أن معاوية كتب إلى المغيرة. Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan radiallahu anhu wrote a letter to Mughira bin Shu'bah. And he said, tell me something you heard from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And this is a sunnah to do. To go to someone and ask them, tell me a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Maybe they tell you a hadith that you've never heard of before. And you know, especially for laymen and laywomen who are not engrossed in studying, the hadith that you hear in a lecture, unless you're actually studying a book like we are studying, you're going to only be exposed to very few direct statements of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Therefore, be addicted to a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I knew a person that they had the habit to purchase hadith books, especially, you know, just read through the hadith books. Because when any author whose book you read through, it is as if you are in the company of that author. So when you are reading a book of hadith, it is as if you're in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was a copy of, they printed it in Saudi. It had all 6 authentic books in one volume. It was kind of big, it was thick like this. And on the side of it, they had like comments on each one of the books. Something unique, right? And I believe it was about Tirmidhi or Sunan Abi Dawud. Tirmidhi, I think. Man kana fi baytihi hadha al-kitab ka'annama fi baytihi nabiyyun yatakallam. Whoever possesses this book in their house, it is as if they have the Prophet in their house. So reading hadith, and one of the ways of getting barakah in your home is that the family sits together and at least reads 1 or 2 hadith or 1 page of hadith every day. In our tradition, we call this ta'aleem. That everyone, it could be after a certain salah, before going to sleep, early in the morning, whatever works. But everyone in the family should get together once a day and read at least 1 page of a hadith book, if not at least 1 hadith. And you should rotate between different people. You should rotate between the different people. So each person has the barakah of reading hadith. When students of knowledge are studying hadith, they actually fight who can read hadith, who has the opportunity to read hadith. Because this is barakah and blessing. Nothing more blessed will come out of your mouth than the words of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu tells Mughira bin Shu'bah, tell me of something you heard directly from Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. قال فكتب إليه المغيرة أني سمعته يقول عند انصرافه من الصلاة. Mughira bin Shu'bah said, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, when he was turning back from salah after he finished his salah, he said, لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. These are, there are different rewards for this. If you could just, there's a book right there, should say Easy Good Deeds or something. You can just bring it for me.
The rewards of good deeds.
2 minutes. Mu'adh bin Jabal radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, whoever recites La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahul mulk wa lahul hamd yuhyi wa yumeet biyadihi al-khair wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, after Fajr Salah 10 times will be given 7 things. Allah will record 10 good deeds in his favor. Allah will wipe out 10 sins from him. Allah will raise him by 10 ranks. He will get the reward of freeing 10 slaves. They will protect him from shaitan. They will safeguard him from harm. No sin except shirk will be able to afflict him on that day. And whoever says it after Maghrib, they will have the same reward. There's a ton of reward for this dhikr specifically. In one hadith, Allah will send an army of fully armed angels that will guard you against shaitan till the next morning. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahul mulk wa lahul hamd yuhyi wa yumeet. In there's the addition of yuhyi wa yumeet wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. The Prophet ﷺ would recite this 3 times. Right? These adhkar, they help us, the difference between getting up from salah immediately and then doing some dhikr after. It's a very big difference. It's what creates that longing discussion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in salah is what you are doing as a communal obligation. The dhikr after Allah proves that you're not just there because you have to be there. And one really good thing about Dallas masjids is that most of the masjids here, people sit after for dhikr. I was in Uzbekistan and I prayed Jum'ah Salah in the masjid of Abu Hafs Kabir, where Abu Hafs Kabir and Saghir are buried. These are 2 great scholars in the time of Imam Bukhārī rahmatullah alayh. It's one of the most beautiful masjids I've seen. The masjid had a half a dome, like half a dome, which was like incredible, like half a glass dome. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't because it was under construction. I believe that was the architecture of it. The Jum'ah Salah, I prayed, and after Jum'ah Salah, first of all, the lecture went on in Uzbeki for like half an hour. After Salah, everyone did dhikr. Like, I'm talking about 100% of the masjid. And the masjid had easy over 1,000 people inside it. They did their dhikrs all sitting down. Nobody got up. Then everybody got up to pray their sunnahs. The whole masjid. And then after that, this is the town where Imam Bukhārī rahmatullah alayhi and them were from. I believe this was in Samarkand or Bukhara. Either he was born in this town or he passed away in he was born in Bukhara, he passed away in Samarkand. And this masjid was in one of those. I believe it was Bukhara. And I just found that to be very remarkable. That the community realized as a whole that the dhikr is very important. The dhikr is going to be protection. And people think to themselves, how is dhikr going to protect me? How is it going to affect me? It's just few words that I'm saying. How is this going to change anything in my life? When you take medicine or vitamins, it's just one small tablet. But that tablet releases during the whole day. You have a headache over here. One small pill you take. How is that pill going to take the headache away? The same way the spiritual headache goes away through dhikr. There's a door for the people in Jannah who are dhakireen. When Allah talks about different rewards, whenever He mentions dhikr, generally He says, وَالذَّاكِرِينَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. The people who remember Allah consistently. One of the best things you can do in your life is to do so much dhikr on a tasbih that you break the tasbih. That you do so much sajdas on a musalla that you tear the musalla. That's like, everyone's going to tear clothes, everyone's going to break their phone. That's normal. But to do enough dhikr until the beads snap, that is a flex. Rasulullah ﷺ said this 3 times. قَالَ وَكَانَ يَنْهَى عَنْ قِيلِ وَقَالِ. Now in this whole hadith is this one element that Imam Bukhārī rahmatullahi alayhi brought this whole hadith for, under this chapter heading. That the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam prohibited. قِيل وَقَالِ. He said, she said. He didn't like it. وَكَثْرَةِ السُّؤَالِ. Asking too many questions. Some people just ask like the most ludicrous questions. Do you know when Yajuj and Majuj is coming out? Is Dajjal part of, Apple or Samsung? Just useless questions. No faida, no benefit. Ask, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَحُسْنُ السُّؤَالِ نِصْفُ الْعِلْمِ. A good question is half of knowledge, because the other half is the answer. So ask good questions. Too many useless questions isn't good. The question should have a maqsad, a beneficial value to yourself and to everyone around you. You want to ask such a question that when it is answered, you never forget the answer. The people in the congregation don't forget it, and it's beneficial for all. That's the quality of the question you should ask. Someone said, I heard Allama Khalid Mahmoud rahmatullahi alayhi, he mentioned this. He said, someone said that in the Quran, Allah says, Tibyāna kulli shay. There's an explanation and there's an answer for everything. Someone said, oh yeah? He said, how many leaves are on that tree over there? Dumb question. The Shaykh said, 3,484. He said, how do you know that? He said, don't believe me, count. But sometimes silly questions require a silly answer. Banu Israel was known for asking a lot of questions. Allah tells them, when there was the murder that took place in the town, there was an uncle who was very wealthy, had no kids, and his inheritor was only one nephew. And the nephew was waiting, he said, this guy's not dying. When you're younger, you don't really care too much about these things, but unfortunately, when the desire of wealth comes, then this is what people fight over. The wealthy, one of the things that they forget is that the more wealth you leave behind, the more opportunity you give for your family to be shredded in pieces. How many people argue and fight over inheritance? This person took my inheritance, this person took this inheritance. Ask your parents, ask your grandparents, the fights that have happened with inheritance. How many of us have ever heard of this person hasn't, we don't talk to those people anymore. They took our inheritance. Right? We hear about this all the time, right? And that is why it's compulsory on every person to write out their will, to write out their inheritance, so that there is no debate after they pass away. Even if you're young, you should have your inheritance read. I met a man the other day, and he was telling me how in like the simple Afghanistan region and stuff, he was talking about one guy and how he built a well on top of a hill and all of this stuff. And then he tells me, he says that The man was very simple. So you'd go to his house, he'll show you. This is my kafan. This is my will. My graveyard is dug already. This is the plaque you're gonna put, my tombstone. All you have to do is put a date of death. Everything is ready inside now. Right? That, if you don't have your will written, that means you still think that you have unlimited time in this dunya. And if your will is executed incorrectly, you are accountable by Allah. You're accountable by Allah. It's the only action that manifests after your death. It's the amal that manifests after your death. So anyway, this uncle, he wasn't dying, so his nephew kills him. And doesn't only kill him, he throws him, he puts him on the next door town. So now in the morning, people woke up, and back in the day, they'd close the towns, they'd lock the towns up so they didn't get invaded at nighttime. Wake up in the morning and they see dead man outside the town. Who did this? And this guy, oh my God, my uncle has died. That's why when some people come and they cry, and just because someone is crying doesn't make them right. Someone said very beautifully, one of the scholars, he said, so did Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers cry after dumping him in the well. That's why a judge and a mufti cannot get influenced by tears. Somebody comes and cries, oh my God, this happened, that happened. May Allah make it easy for you, but your tears and your emotions do not affect the judgment. For when you are judging, you must listen to both sides. In the story of Dawood alayhi salam, what happened? Dawood alayhi salam was a great king, and he would decide between people, and his judge was very wise. And he was inside his palace, and two people appeared, and the first one says, "Inna hada akhi lahu 99 na'ja wa liya na'jatun wahida." This is my brother, he has 99 goats, and I have only one. فَقَالَ أَكْفِلْنِيهَا وَعَزَّنِي فِي الْخِطَابِ. He told me, give this one to me as well. And he was very eloquent. Dawud alayhi salam says, hey, so bad, so messed up, man. You have 99 goats, and your brother only has one goat. And now you have one. The guy tells him, Dawud alayhi salam says, you have 99 goats, and your brother has only one. And now you want your brother's goat too? After he makes his decision, they disappear. And he realized his mistake. See, when Allah brings something that detailed in the Quran, He's giving you a message. And He says, Dawud immediately went into sajda and asked Allah for forgiveness. Why? It's because, sure, it sounds like he could be wrong for wanting that one goat too, but what if all 100 were his? And that man stole one of them. But you didn't hear both sides. This guy is saying, he's more eloquent, but he was silent. And generally, the oppressors, instead of accepting their oppression, they regurgitate their bulum, so that you believe the oppressed are the oppressors. Look at Israel and Gaza. What will they tell you? See, everything in the Quran has a reason. There's 57 Arab states, only one Jewish state. Our brother has 99 goats. And now he wants this one goat too. They'll tell you their person is doing this and they're doing that. And all of these dhulms, you have to hear both sides. You have to hear every angle. You cannot just make a decision from one side. So anyway, the people of Banu Israel killed them. The guy went and he said, someone killed my uncle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Musa, tell Banu Israel to slaughter a cow. And the reason Allah wanted them to do this was so that the love of the calf that they were worshipping would exit from their heart. That's what Allah commands them. Second surah is called Surah Baqarah because of this story. Not because of the calf. They worshipped a calf, not a cow. They were commanded to slaughter the cow. And the interesting thing is that they're not actually supposed to be looking for the red heifer. They're supposed to be looking for the yellow heifer. You research on this, there is a Semitic translation of the word that some Jewish scholars believe safra and yellow is the correct interpretation and not red. Anyway, what did they do? Allah says, slaughter a cow. What did they say? Cow? What kind of cow? لا فارض ولا بكر عوان بين ذلك فافعلوا ما تؤمرون. First they said, are you joking with us? He said, just do what you're told. How is the cow? Allah said, not too old, not too young. Just do it. Really? ما لونها? What color is the cow? Hey, what color are cows? Allah said, no, then now you yellow cow. And not only yellow, bright yellow. تَسُرُّ النَّاظِرِينَ. That's why our walls used to be very bright yellow. But the people didn't get happy when they saw it. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, then they said, okay, tell us more, inshallah we'll do it. And Allah said, okay, this cow has to be such, never yoked, never worked, perfect, blemish free. All of these things is what they're looking for in the red heifer. Surah Baqarah, second surah, longest. Do I really need to explain more? If the Quran is not a window into the future, then I don't know what it is. Like where it's placed, the importance of it, the direction of it is just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. وَإِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ. Allah abhors the wastage of wealth. Allah hates it. Blowing money uselessly, إِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ. Someone else can use it. It could be used for something beneficial. Just splurge, just buy things for no reason. And just keep it and never utilize it. إِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ. You will be questioned about your wealth, but you will also be even more questioned about wealth that you are responsible of. Sometimes you have the company card, or you're working at the office, and they tell you. I had one time one of the youngsters. He comes to me and he says, we were having some event here years ago, and he says to me, okay, Mufti, he said, I'm gonna bring some snacks. I said, I said, okay, so where are you getting the snacks from? He said, my friend works at this one store. He'll just pick it up and bring it. I said, what do you mean he'll just pick it up and bring it? He said, yeah, we just do this all the time. We grab a drink from here, chips from there. Haram? It's haram for you to waste these things. One of the scholars, when he would go and shop, we've all seen those like cereal boxes or something. It's got like a damaged box inside, and it's like kind of like it was the one that got cornered, or like if you see the sandwiches there, you have the corner piece sandwich. You know what I'm talking about? The ends. Someone says, cut out the scraps. Haram Ali. We live in a day and age where our brothers and sisters are hungry, 250 calories a day. So that scholar would go and pick up the items that were damaged. Someone said, why are you getting this? There's a good one right there. He said, because this one is going to be wasted, so that the sellers are not held accountable by Allah. Different method of thinking. We go to buffets for what? Apna paisa kha rahe. Our teacher, Mufti al-Din, he once told us, he was Pathan, I'm also Pathan. So he would make a joke, he would say, people abuse the Pathans too much for their intellect. They make so much fun of them. He said, one Pathan went, he said, but itni bewakoofi ki baat karte. One Pathan went and sabun kharida. He bought a soap and he said, I thought this was barfi. He said, theek hai, wo to kar liya galti. He made the mistake, lekin phir aap kehte ki wo kha raha hai. He's eating the soap. So someone said, look, what are you doing? He said, apne paisa kha raha hu. He said, I'm fulfilling my money's worth. Some people will go and eat so much at a buffet, they'll get sick. Or they'll go to weddings and stuff. No, food. So we must just eat everything that is there. La, Allah doesn't like this. Then he said, وَمَنْعِ وَهَاتٍ. And Allah dislikes preventing what should be given. Stingy people, Allah hates it. The right that you have and people underneath you spend on them. Whether it's your family, it's your siblings, spend on those who you have a right, your zakat. Many of you youngsters are eligible to give zakat and don't even know. How many times do I meet a young man or a young woman who says, we haven't given zakat for years? وَمَنْعِ وَهَاتٍ. This is your responsibility, giving. You are holding back, Allah will ask you for these things. Every article you possess, you have to answer for. Every garment, every dollar, every possession, everything Allah will ask. And in the world where there is so much hunger and strife, the question becomes more. That is why one person says something very beautiful. Like you have to change the mindset just so you don't get held accountable on the day of judgment. That's why intention is so powerful. Sometimes you have to throw something away. You can't eat it. You shouldn't always be in that situation. Sometimes you are in those situations where you have to do it. So you make niyyah. Ya Allah, this is for the insects. We're going to glorify you. Changing the mentality. So it changed from just pure wastage into, Ya Allah, make this the sustenance of the earth. Though it's such a fake niyyah, but it's so much better than no niyyah. Because how many of us intend to do something good and it's so plastic? So anyway, add one more thing and hope that Allah blesses it. وَعُقُوقِ الْأُمَّهَاتِ. Allah hates and dislikes وَمَنْعِ وَهَاتٍ, and asking people for things. Don't ask. Don't be a person that's always asking. Everyone's got that one friend in the friend group that's either the credit card for the whole group or is the freeloader for the whole group. Every single time. وَمَنْعِ وَهَاتٍ. Allah hates this. And when it comes to your turn to reciprocate, you're not there. Like in a friend group, it happens almost all the time. We know people, this guy's dad's wealthy. Let's keep on using it. وَمَنْعِ وَهَاتٍ. Allah dislikes this. Allah dislikes the stretching of hands in front of others. As a Muslim, the only person you should stretch your hand in front of is your Allah. The only individual. One of the most incredible things I learned from my asatidah and my teachers was they never stretched their hands. Even if you tried to give it to them, they wouldn't take it. One time, Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahmatullahi alayhi was sitting down and someone came and brought some money and wealth to him. He said, I don't want it. He said, Shaykh, please take it. He said, I don't want it. He said, Shaykh, this is for you. He said, no. So as the person was leaving, he left. And when the Shaykh was exiting from the masjid and he put his foot in the shoes, he found the money in the shoes. And he said, look how great our Allah is. If you kick the dunya, Allah puts the dunya on your feet. Allah puts the dunya in your shoes. You see, Allah, when you want something from insan, you stretch one hand. All you have to do is stretch the second one and ask Allah. Don't turn to insan. Turn all your affairs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Insan gets upset after a while. Allah never gets upset. No, Allah gets upset when you don't ask Him. The Arabic poet says, Allahu yaghdabu in tarakta su'alahu. Allahu yaghdabu in tarakta su'alahu. Wa hadha ibn Adam yaghdab hina yus'al. That Allah gets angry when you don't ask. And this is the son of Adam gets angry the more you ask. وَعُقُوقِ الْأُمَّهَاتِ. Being undutiful to your mothers. Ask the one who doesn't have mom anymore. Make those relationships well with your mother. I mean, even no matter how difficult it is, put a stone on your heart, for no one will unconditionally love you like a parent loves you. Nobody. No one will make dua for you, not even your children. Do you make dua for your parents that much? If you don't, why would they do it for you? Why would your children make dua for you? People say, I'm looking for true love. You already have it. There's nothing more pure than a mother's love and a father's love. To the point that when the Prophet ﷺ wants to explain Allah's love, he explains it through a mother. And there's nothing more honorable than having motherhood. Allah, man, puts Jannah underneath your feet. Like, go by your mothers and just be by their feet. That's the closest you will experience your own Jannah in this dunya. Press those feet, earn those du'as. I promise you, I have never seen someone earn the du'as of their mother, but that their life is just incredible. And the du'as of parents, they don't have an expiration date. They last long after them. And so many times, my father, may Allah reward and bless him and give him a long and healthy life, he was very dutiful to his parents, very incredibly. Though they lived on a different continent, both mother and father passed away in his arms. Mother passed away in Ramadan. Dad never misses Tarawih, just doesn't. But one day he decides to stay back. His mom passed away hand in hand. The son who looked after them for decades missed both parents' death. And the son who was elsewhere, my father would tell me, we used to live in Jeddah, and he used to work for Korean Airlines. My dad speaks like fluent Korean. It's really incredible seeing a man with a beard, and then it's like his dialect accent, and like whenever other Koreans hear him speak, they get like super psyched. And then when we go to restaurants, it's like a whole experience. I'm not a big fan of Korean food, because like traditional Korean food is like very different than like Korean barbecue. So when we would go to Korean restaurants as kids, I swear to God, like people would be getting up from their seats to come and just see my dad speak. The chef would come out from inside and they'd give so many complimentary things, the most expensive item. They would just be like, when my dad used to work at the airport, he used to tell us that Korean parents would bring their kids to him, yell at them in front of my dad and be like, look, this guy speaks better Korean than you do. My dad used to fly to Hyderabad and take the last flight out of Jeddah, go to his mother, get dua from her, and take the first flight back to Jeddah the next day. Countless times. Countless. Same thing with his father. When his father passed away, he just happened to be there. Passed away in his arms. So the du'as of parents, it's powerful and impactful. And living with the only thing that is a worthy bandage over the demise of parents is to know that you haven't caused them pain or hurt. Because you can go to the grave 1,000 times and say, I'm sorry. It won't change a thing. It won't change a thing. May Allah give one and all the ability to look after their parents and be dutiful to them and earn their du'as. وَوَدِّ الْبَنَاتِ. And you see the power of the Prophet ﷺ's word. Disobeying parents, what did people do? They buried their daughters. People put women under the ground. Allah elevated their status so much, He put Jannah under their feet. People used to put women under the ground. Allah elevated the status so much, He put the entire of Kainat underneath the feet. Babu Hifdh al-Lisan, chapter 23, to protect one's tongue. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should speak well or remain silent. Allah says, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. Nothing exits your mouth, but it gets documented. Every single lafadha in Arabic means to throw something. And words are the same way. Every time you speak, you're throwing something metaphorically at someone. And that's why people say, touched my heart. Your words touched my heart, because words in the spiritual dimension are being tossed. And that is why some people can take your stern words and others cannot. It's like a football game. Someone who knows the game, you can throw the ball as fast as you want, you can chuck it at them, they'll be able to catch it. And someone who's a novice, you don't chuck the ball at them because they can't catch it. And that's how words are also measured. The people who understand you, you can be more stern with them. And some people, no matter how hard you try, you have to always be gentle with them because they can't capture it. They can't take it. So when children go to their parents and say, you always yell at this person, or you always yell at me and not the younger sibling or this, it's because you can handle it better. You see, Allah's the great equalizer. How many of you are the eldest in the house? Or amongst the eldest, the top two? Most of you guys, right? How many are the youngest? Okay. How many in your house does the eldest gets the most like strictest rules, gets held accountable the most, and all that? How many of you guys, the eldest? How many of you guys see that the youngest parents are the most lenient with them, generally speaking? Right? Okay. At one point you were the youngest too. Why? There's a hikmah in this. Why is this the general story for so many homes? Because the eldest will always spend more time with the parents. And the youngest will always spend less time with parents. The oldest will always have parents a larger part of their life than the youngest will. And when Allah gives you more time with them, Allah also conditions you more. And because the youngest is gonna be metaphorically orphaned much younger and experience the pain much younger than you, Allah has an element of more compassion for them. That's why you see it across the board, except in rare situations. You know, someone passes away or something of that sort. ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد. I was once in Darul Zakaria, and one of the students, he was a year ahead of me, Maulana Farouk, from Tunisia. He was a direct descendant of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A lot of people say that, and we don't believe or deny, or, so it's mashallah. One time the teacher, he was sitting in Maulana Usman Mewati's class, and they're talking, and Maulana Usman Mewati is one of my teachers. He's got a really he's a very straight, incredibly straightforward, and very logical. Like we would debate him, but his logic was just top tier. He could, Mewat, he's from Mewat, is this like obscure village in the middle of India. But this man will praise Mewat as if it is the fourth holiest place on earth after Makkah, Medina, Masjid al-Aqsa. And he will make you believe it. He was that he could give you any argument and prove that argument. And we would debate on this, and Maulana Choksi would actually come 10-15 minutes early to hear our class debate Maulana Usman Mewati, was because the arguments would be so ludicrous, right? But Maulana Usman Mewati was just so good at it. Like he could make you feel like whatever he's saying is, I remember, and he was like a very strong Indian, right? And he was and he was very passionate about it. Anyhow, so he was a very logic-prone person. And one of Maulana Farouk tells him that he was still a student in these days, and he says, some discussion happens about the Prophet ﷺ, his lineage, and he says, I'm a descendant of Rasulullah ﷺ. So he says, Acha? He said, really? What's your evidence? On the spot, I'm the son of so-and-so, who is the son of so-and-so, who is the son of so-and-so, from memory all the way to Rasulullah ﷺ. And he was like, and then he pulls out from his pocket the lineage. He said, everyone in our village memorizes our forefathers till Rasulullah ﷺ and carry this with us around, just so that if tomorrow someone objects to us, we can respond immediately. Brilliant guy, brilliant, highly intellectual, and really incredible personality. He was a poet as well. In their village, if by 12, 13 you cannot construct Arabic poetry on your own, they consider you to be mentally deficient. It was a very interesting place that he came from. So I remember sitting down one time and I was asking him how much, from the qira'at, the different variants of the Quran. There are 7, 10 variants. So holistically there are 10, but some people study 7 and some people study the remainder 3, and then it becomes 10. So I asked him, I said, how many qira'at have you studied? He goes, he's working on the computer, he's typing, right? He's standing up and he's typing. So you could just say it, right? Stops, goes like this. And I was like, why didn't you just say 10? So he said, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. There's nothing that you say, but there's 2 angels documenting everything. My Ustad Mufti Rada al-Haq, you can count the words he says. You can count them. Most of my teachers, if you see me and you see my teachers, complete different. I'm a yapper. I'll sit there and just constantly talk. Them, every word of theirs. As my mother says, pele tolo per bolo. Weigh it and then say it. Weigh it, measure it, and then say it. وبه قال حدثنا محمد بن أبي بكر المقدمي حدثنا عمر بن علي سمع أبا حازم عن سهل بن سعد عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من يضمن لي ما بين لحييه وما بين رجليه أضمن له الجنة. Whosoever safeguards for me what is between their jawbone, what is between their legs, the Prophet ﷺ says, I guarantee Jannah for you. 2 fleshes. And the Prophet ﷺ, and this man is a Sadiq al-Amin. He's the most truthful and he's the most honest person and trustworthy person. He's not gonna lie. What does he say? You safeguard these 2 things and I guarantee, I take dhaman. In Arabic, dhaman means I take responsibility of your Jannah. Dhaman, that's dhiman. To take responsibility. And the power of this hadith, we've all heard of this hadith. But I want you to really think of the level of what Rasulullah is saying. He's just not telling you, you're going to go to Jannah. No. Adman lahul Jannah. My young brother, my young sister, protect your haya, and Habib ﷺ will be waiting at the doors of Jannah to grab you by the hand. This haya and this modesty, this dunya is full of temptation. You protect your iman. You protect it. And the Prophet of Allah ﷺ himself will hold you by the hand, inshallah, and take you to Jannah. And every time it's difficult and you think to yourself, I'm about to slip, just reflect. Then let this go and you will have the Prophet ﷺ taking you. Meaning, we all are going to, inshallah, want to buy a house or buy something. But imagine if the person who shows you your house in Jannah is the man himself. Which also means that if you don't do this, may Allah protect us. The Prophet is not going to take you to Jannah. Guarantee your Jannah, which is kind of awkward on the Day of Judgment. So if you do make mistakes, do tawbah. Because the tawbah is so powerful that it erases the sin. And it's as if you never committed the sin. التائب من الذنب كمن لا ذنب له. وبه قال حدثني عبد العزيز بن عبد الله حدثنا إبراهيم بن سعد عن ابن شهاب الزهري عن أبي سلمة عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Whoever believes in Allah and the final day, either say something good or remain silent. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلَا يُؤْذِي جَارَهُ. Don't hurt your neighbors if you believe in Allah and the last day. One time Aisha radiallahu anha asked, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who are my neighbors? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said 40 people in each direction. And the ones who have the most right are the people that are right next to you, your neighbors. Abdullah bin Mubarak rahimahullah was a great scholar, and he had a Jewish neighbor. So his Jewish neighbor was selling his house, and this man decides to sell it double the market value. People were like, let us teach you economics. When you need to get rid of something, you don't sell it double the value. You sell it the value or less, double the value. So he says, imagine if the cost was 200,000. He said 100,000 is for my house, and 100,000 is to have a neighbor like Abdullah bin Mubarak. Now listen to what Abdullah bin Mubarak does. He goes and he purchased the house, and he hears this, and then he gifts the house back to the neighbor. The Jewish neighbor then accepts Islam, and he said, "Aslamani khuluq Abdullah ibn Mubarak." It was the character of Abdullah ibn Mubarak that made me Muslim. This is the rich history that we have. This is the rich history that we have. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيُكْرِمْ ضَيْفَهُ. Whoever believes in Allah in the last day, look after your guests. How many of us are in their rooms when there are guests in the house? Looking after the guest is an Islamic duty and responsibility. Oh, I have other plans. I need to be out. Ikramul dayf. It's part of the deen. And this is one thing I think it's become a cultural shift in our country, where we don't invite people home as much, and it's more to restaurants and outside places, or there's still a lot of dawats. Is Dallas still head of dawats?
Maybe the older community.
Huh?
Like the older generation.
It still is? There was a time in Frisco there was a dawat every weekend. Is that the case still? Somewhat? When I came here, the dawats were insane. I remember in 2019's Eid, never forget that Eid. I went to 9 houses in one day. I was shocked. The amount of dawats and parties and this and that. And I was amazed. But the ikram of life. But now, I mean, because I visit and I go to different towns and I see different places, I've seen people losing that concept of life at home. When we grew up, the scholars that traveled and visited us, they stayed at our homes. We had a room specifically for the alim, a guest room. No one slept in it. Only the ulama came, they slept in our home. Even when we had a very small place, the room for the alim was always there. Now, culture is what? Sheikhs in a hotel. There's no, even when there's guests and there's shuyukh that come, what do? We go and we take them out to this restaurant and that restaurant. How many times do we see guests come over here? Seldom do we see the homes incorporating them or bringing them in. Seldom do we ever see this. Whereas these are methods of barakah inside the home. Rasulullah said, "La ya'kul ta'amak illa taqi." Let the righteous come and indulge in your homes. There'll be barakah inside there. I'm not telling you to invite me. But when guest or ulama mashayikh come, you should be in the forefront. You should be in the forefront of ikram al-dayf. This is part of our iman, to look after the guests. People will come, "Oh, mashallah, where are you from?" "From so-and-so place." "Oh, nice. Visiting in town?" Yeah. "Oh, yeah. You know, there's a restaurant across the street. Really good food." "You mean restaurant across the street?" When I was younger, I was going through, my friends still make fun of this. I had a very close friend that was in a town. This town is like in the middle of nowhere. So naturally, I'm hyping it up to my parents and family. I'm like, "Yo, my boy lives in that town." I was like, "Yo, the moment I call him, he's gonna be like, 'Yo, come over.'" He's like, yeah. So I called him up. I was like, "Hey," "Yo, I'm gonna be driving through your town." I was like, "You around?" He's like, yeah. I was like, "Yo, is there any good place to eat?" I'm noticing he's not saying anything. So I'm like, yeah, 2-3 minutes go by. I'm like, yo, is there any place to eat? He says, it's a great red lobster. Until today, it's been like so many years. My friends still joke around with me. Whenever I call them, the other friend groups, they always say, Wasim, are you at the Red Lobster? But this is part of ikram. I grew up with guests always at home, always. My father, this is in the 90s and the 80s. My father, we used to live in Jeddah, and Makkah is about an hour and a half. In those days, almost 2 hours away. My dad would just pick up like 10 people and just call my mom and be like, I'm bringing them out. And my mom became so accustomed to having guests and preparing for guests. It was the culture, like this till today, it's a very big cultural element of having guests at the house. Because of, a hadith like this, that there's barakah in it. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts barakah in those homes for honoring the guests. Ya Allah. وبه قال حدثنا أبو الوليد حدثنا ليث حدثنا سعيد المقبري عن أبي شريح الخزاعي قال سمع أذناي ووعاه قلبي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول الضيافة 3 أيام جائزته قيل ما جائزته قال يوم وليلة ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم ضيفه ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليسكت. Now, how long should you be a guest at someone's house? Maximum is 3 days. You shouldn't stay at someone's home more than 3 days. No. Whether you are close or you are far, 3 days should be the maximum. Now, if they offer you to extend and circumstances, but the general principle is no more than 3 days. The second thing, as the host, the first day, 1 meal, you should splurge and go above and beyond. This is what the Prophet said. 1 day, you feed them well. The other 2 days, the same dal chawal you've been eating, you feed them the same thing. This simplicity is what brings barakah. What we want to do is we just want to do it one time. Every day it must go above and beyond, it becomes taxing. And then a person stresses out. And then the house's environment gets bad. And then a person is anxious. Oh my God, I have to do this work. Where the sincerity escapes. The ikhlas escapes. See, the Prophet ﷺ is setting the tone for the community. Go above and beyond, but in limits. And there should be no expectations for the other people that the next day too I must have a full course meal and breakfast and lunch and dinner and there's 20 people staying at the house and back and forth. No. We should be, simple enough that we should be able to enjoy simple food at home. Ibrahim alayhi salam had a concept, ma hadar hudur. Whatever is in the fridge, come and join me in it. One time, one person told the sheikh, there's a saying in Urdu that dal chawal, come for dal chawal. Dal chawal, adas and rice, which is like the basic of basics of food that you can have, right, in the subcontinent. So a person kept on going to the sheikh. He said, come for dal chawal, come for adas and rice, come for adas and rice, come for adas and rice. A long time. Sheikh said, okay, he's thinking this is metaphorical. So he goes to the house, and the man made adas and rice. So then there was a dog walking by, and the dog starts barking. So the man says to the dog, he says, go from here before I break your head. So the sheikh responded, he said, listen, whatever this guy says, he does exactly the way he says it. But the point is, all jokes aside, we should be accustomed to the simplicity. We should be able to come over, go to someone's house for just tea, just water, a cup of milk. This is from the Sunnah. Formalities, drop the formalities. The Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba's heart came closer due to the informalities. Too much takalluf. It must be 10 dishes and 11 dishes. And then we don't have the adab as well. When we go to someone's house and there are people cooked so much, Mufti Sahib, you didn't try this. You didn't try that. You didn't try. My stomach, or is it like the valley of Jahannam? The maqsad, my teacher Mona Choksi would say, the purpose of a buffet is not so that you try every item. This is against insan's tabir. But the purpose is, some people like chicken more, some like goat more, some like rice more, some like salad more, some like... Everyone is different. And a person then can choose based on their desire. But you must not compel people that they must take everything. That's number one. The second thing, it is against adab to put something in the guest's plate. Our teacher Mona Choksi would say, if somebody puts food in his plate, you say, now you finish it. This is a true story. My classmates, they were in Jamaat in Afghanistan, in Pakistan. They went to this Pathan guy's house. Wallahi al-azim, true story. They're all older than me. They're grown men, big beards, big guys. The guy invites them, and they had already eaten. He gets home, and he prepared a massive meal for them. I just say, ate a little, it was very good. Wallahi al-azim. The Pathan went inside and pulled out a gun. He said, "Tu khai gaya goli marega." Wallahi al-azim. They said, Wasim, we were crying and eating. They said it was the most painful meal of our life. A straight villager guy. Like, to him, it was like, goli kaiga, ya kana kaiga. And I said, like, we were like shedding tears and we were like crying. It was at this point that we're sitting and eating. Anyway, the etiquette is that the bowl of the dish or something, you push towards their direction. Or you move the spoon towards their direction. The adab is not to put it inside their plate. And so in this way, they feel, and you should, you shouldn't just be sitting there and like, they say that there are 3 styles of eating. Aklul muluk, wa aklul salaha, wa aklul kilab. That one is that, you dine with the person, you leave them and they eat alone, or you are sitting down while they're eating. So the first one is aklul kilab, which is you just give the guest food and you don't join and sit with them and eat. This is like feeding a dog. This is abhorrent, you shouldn't do this. And then between the others too is that either you are sitting there, whether you're eating or not, but you're giving them company, right? They say this is like aklul muluk, or even with the righteous, that this is still okay. Or you join them and you eat a little bit with them. Like either of these two. This is the etiquettes of the adab. But just to give the guest food or drop off food, this aklul kilab. This is like how dogs eat. Anyhow, وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا. Speak good. Or ليسكت. سكوت الصمت زين والسكوت السلام. فإذا نطقت فلا تكن مكثارا. وما إن ندمت على السكوت مرة ولقد ندمت على الكلام مرارا. The poet says, speaking, silence is gold. It's gold. If you talk, don't talk too much. I have never regretted why I didn't speak, but a ton of times I've regretted why did I open my mouth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give one and all the tawfiq. No, there's one more hadith. Oh, there's a few hadith in here. وبه قال حدثني إبراهيم بن حمزة حدثني ابن أبي حازم عن يزيد بن محمد بن إبراهيم عن عيسى بن طلحة التيمي عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه سمع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إن العبد لا يتكلم بالكلمة ما يتبين فيها يزل بها في النار أبعد مما بين المشرق. There's certain times you say something wrong and you slip into the fire of Jahannam in a distance so deep between the east and the west. What does this mean? You say a word of kufr, you say a word, people, there's a lot of people either say you have God hands or this, or they use words of shirk, and these are so problematic that it delves a person in Jahannam, or a person curses or swears something to their family members or to their relatives in a certain way that makes them go into the depth of Jahannam. وبه قال حدثني عبد الله بن منير سمع أبا النضر حدثنا عبد الرحمن بن عبد الله يعني ابن دينار عن أبيه عن أبي صالح عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن العبد لا يتكلم بالكلمة من رضوان الله لا يلقى لها بالا يرفع الله بها درجات. Sometimes you say something and you think it's very small, but by Allah it's bars, levels. Allah raises you very high by just saying it. It could be dhikr, it could be a kind word to someone. it could be something positive that just puts a smile on someone's face. A person says it and they don't think it's a big deal. But by Allah, that person has been elevated, magnified so high. وَإِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَيَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ مِنْ سَخَطِ اللَّهِ لَا يُلْقِي لَهَا بَالًا يَهْوِي بِهَا فِي جَهَنَّمَ. And sometimes people say things that they don't consider to be a big deal, but because of that, they get tossed into the fire of Jahannam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect one and all from it, inshallah. Inshallah, next week we will continue the chapter of Bab al-Bukhārī min khashyatillahi ta'ala. We have a few minutes left till Maghrib. We'll open it up for Q&A, inshallah.
So if your mother calls you while you're praying, is there like, if it's a fard or a nafil that you go respond, or you just...
Yeah, in fard salah, you should not, you cannot break it, respond. In a nafil salah, like you should, wrap it up. You shouldn't break the salah immediately. Well, some scholars say you can, but